You're no daughter of mine if you betray your own blood. That's the sentence that shatters the last thread between us. He says it loud enough for the neighbors to hear. My father's voice cuts through the warm Virginia dusk like a blade. We're standing in the backyard of my childhood home, same crooked fence, same rusted barbecue, same cracked patio where I once played hopscotch barefoot. But the warmth of the summer evening feels like a cruel trick. Everything else is ice. I'm 36 now. My name's not one I can share, but I've been living under aliases so long, even I forget what my real name feels like in someone else's mouth. We're gathered for my cousin Daniel's engagement party. I wasn't planning to come, but my mother had begged me in the voice she used to use when I was 5 and hiding under the porch from thunderstorms. Just come, she said. No uniforms, no speeches, just family. So I came in jeans and a plain t-shirt, like any regular woman who hadn't spent the last decade walking tightropes through war zones. I smiled. I brought wine. I stood beside the potato salad. And now I'm being called a traitor by the man who once taught me how to ride a bike. My father's face is red, boiling, not from the July sun, but from the quiet fury he's been bottling for years. You left us, he says again. You disappeared. When your uncle died, when your grandmother was sick. Where the hell were you? People around us shift awkwardly, pretending not to listen, failing miserably. My aunt's plastic fork snaps in her hand. Daniel's fiancée pretends she's deep in conversation with the garden gnome. I feel the silence more than I hear it. I was serving. I say quietly. I don't elaborate. I never can. Serving who? He snaps. Some secret paymaster? Some bureaucrat in Washington? You serve them, not your family. You're no daughter of mine. That one lands. I nod slowly, not because I agree, but because I expected this. Maybe I've always expected this moment. I look around the backyard and none of my siblings, Ben, Lucy, or Michael, meet my eyes. They're as silent as the headstones I've stood beside in other countries. I get it. In their world, I left. I abandoned birthdays, holidays, crises, barbecues, no explanations, no return addresses. They don't know I was in Yemen during Mom's back surgery, that I watched Lucy's wedding video alone in a dark room in Berlin, that I sent flowers to Ben's graduation from a bunker under 70 feet of concrete. They don't know because I couldn't tell them. You think you're a hero, my father sneers, jabbing a finger at my chest. But you sold us out. You always thought you were better than this family. That's the part that hurts. Because I never thought I was better. Just different. Dad? I say, voice trembling but low. You were in the army. You served too. He laughs. I served honorably. I didn't lie. I didn't vanish. I didn't crawl back here thinking a plate of deviled eggs makes up for missing your own grandfather's funeral. A beat passes. That's when I realize he doesn't want an apology. He wants to be right. He wants to believe that I abandoned them out of arrogance, not duty, because that would hurt less. So I don't argue. Instead, I look up at the faded American flag fluttering above the shed, and I wonder if it remembers me better than they do. Okay, I say softly. I'll go. And I do. I walk past the cooler full of sweating soda cans, past the kids on the trampoline, past the old oak tree where my initials are still carved into the bark. No one stops me. No one calls after me. I get into my rental car. My hands shake so badly I fumble the keys. I've walked through ruins. I've climbed over bodies. I've pulled children from burning buildings with my own blood on their clothes. But somehow, this backyard, this ordinary, suburban yard filled with people who share my DNA, this is what breaks me. Do they know what it's like? To love your country so much you'd vanish into it? To disappear so others might sleep peacefully at night, never knowing the shape of the danger you danced with? To swallow every scream, every heartbreak, because duty came first? Of course they don't. Maybe that's the price of secrecy. You become a ghost in your own family. Still, somewhere deep inside me, deeper than the codes and covers and protocols, I wanted to believe that one day they'd understand. I guess that day isn't today. I stare out the windshield, the late light streaking through the trees like golden wire, and for the first time in years, I feel homeless, not because I lack a place to sleep, but because no one sees me anymore. Not really. Take a moment. If you're still with me, listening, maybe you've been there too. Cut out, misunderstood, punished for choosing a path that no one else could see. Leave me a comment. Let me know where you are in the world, what time it is, and if you've ever stood alone at a party that was supposed to be about love. Now, let's listen to my story journey. I put the car in drive, and in the rearview mirror, the old house gets smaller and smaller, like it's trying to forget me too. When I was 9, my dad made me bury a compass in the backyard. He said it was broken, and he wanted me to learn that not everything pointing north can be trusted. Funny how that stuck. We were the kind of family that wore patriotism like skin. Our house had 3 flags, one in the front yard, one sewn onto Dad's old army jacket, and one folded tight in a triangular box on the mantel. My brothers were in ROTC before they could spell what it stood for. Sunday nights meant meatloaf and reruns of war documentaries. If you didn't stand straight during the national anthem, you didn't eat dessert. But even as a kid, I knew I wasn't built like them. I used to sneak out to the woods behind our house, notebook in hand, scribbling codes and cipher games while everyone else played catch or polished their boots. I loved puzzles, shadows, and quiet things that didn't need to be explained out loud. It made me odd. It made me invisible. And in a house where volume equaled value, I might as well have been mute. Still, I tried. I went to the same boot camp my dad did, just 2 decades later. I signed the same oath. But when I took my commission, I didn't go infantry like my brothers. I slipped into a different current, one beneath the surface. I was recruited out of my first assignment, barely a year in. No fanfare. Just a man in a suit handing me a folder with no name and no return address. "Your test scores flagged some interest," he said. "You good at keeping secrets?" I didn't say yes. But I didn't say no. My clearance level changed. My uniform disappeared. I was trained in languages I never got to use outside of windowless rooms. I signed things I couldn't tell my own shadow about. The first time I saw my face on a passport that wasn't mine, I felt sick. The second time, I felt clean. You want the truth? Some part of me liked it. The quiet power. The knowledge that I could slip in and out of countries, of conversations, of danger, and no one would ever know I was there. Like a ghost with a purpose. But secrets don't just stay on the field. They come home with you. And they rot. The last time I saw my family before I vanished into assignment rotation, my dad was grilling burgers in the driveway. He handed me a beer, looked me up and down, and said, "Looks like you're finally doing something useful." That was his way of saying, "I'm proud of you." I remember thinking, if he knew what I actually do, he wouldn't look at me like that. He'd look through me like smoke. So I stayed away. Better to be a ghost than a disappointment. Better to let them invent their own stories about where I was. One holiday turned into 2. A year became 3. And then I was gone. I got word through Mom. Quiet messages on secure lines or passed through vague emails. Lucy had a baby. Ben bought a house. Grandpa was sick. I memorized those facts like intel in a brief, even though I couldn't act on any of it. I watched their lives pass like train cars I couldn't board. When Grandpa died, I was deep under in North Africa, coordinating a joint asset recovery. I lit a candle in a hotel bathroom and whispered goodbye while listening to satellite radio interference. I never told anyone. What would I say? They thought I didn't care. They didn't know I'd memorized Grandpa's war stories, so I wouldn't forget what honor sounded like. Then there was Lucy's wedding. I watched it through a hacked Facebook stream on a grainy feed, 7 hours ahead and a continent away. She looked beautiful. No one saved me a seat. When I surfaced again, it was too late. They'd rewritten me in their narrative. The one who left. The one who forgot us. The one who didn't bother. And I couldn't fight that story without blowing up everything I'd sworn to protect. So I let it happen. I let them believe I didn't care. I wore it like a second identity, heavier than any false name I'd ever used. You want to know what it feels like? Watching your siblings post pictures of backyard cookouts while you sit in an embassy basement waiting for extraction? It feels like screaming into a soundproof room, like living in reverse. The worst part isn't missing them. It's knowing they don't miss you. Not really, just the version they used to understand. Years passed. I filed reports. I passed intel. I played roles. I took pills for sleep. I trained younger agents. I lied to lovers. I forgot my reflection. But some nights, I'd still see my dad in my mind, standing on that back porch, arms crossed, jaw clenched, calling me things I couldn't answer to. The thing no one tells you about silence is that it grows teeth. So when I showed up at Daniel's engagement party last week, I wasn't hoping for forgiveness. I was hoping, maybe for some trace of memory, a nod, a word, a shared glance that said, "We don't get you, but we still claim you." Instead, I got accused of betrayal, and maybe that's fair. Maybe betrayal is what it looks like when you sacrifice everything, and the people you love were never given the map. They say silence is noble when it's chosen, but when it's forced, when you have to live inside it, wear it like skin, breathe it through years of missions you can't name, it becomes something else. A prison with velvet walls. After my 3rd year in Black Ops, I stopped correcting people when they asked what I did for a living. "Oh, just federal admin work," I'd say with a shrug. Nothing special. It became my go-to answer, and eventually, even I started believing it a little. The truth was, I was one of 12 assets deployed in a covert counterintelligence program initiated post 9/11. We weren't soldiers in the traditional sense. We didn't wear flags on our shoulders or dog tags around our necks. We were shadows. And shadows don't get funerals. I signed a document once. A non-disclosure clause so severe, I wasn't even allowed to tell a therapist what I'd seen. Which means all the memories? They live in me. And they're messy. Loud. Ugly. They scream when no one else does. Like the time I spent 6 weeks embedded in a foreign cell, pretending to be someone's cousin just to extract one child from a kill list. Or when I held my partner's hand as he bled out in a concrete hallway in Istanbul, whispering old country songs because it was the only thing we both remembered. None of that fits in a holiday card. I get why my family thought I ghosted them. I did. But not because I wanted to hurt them. Because I couldn't stand to lie to their faces anymore. And somewhere along the way, they stopped trying to reach me. Even my mom, the gentlest voice in the world, stopped sending Christmas emails. I became the family myth, mentioned rarely, softened into rumor. When I got word that my cousin Daniel was getting engaged, something in me cracked. I don't even know why I said yes to the invitation. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe I just wanted to see if they remembered how to say my name. I hadn't been back in that backyard since I was 20. The maple tree still stood, stubborn and crooked. The lawn chairs had been replaced, but the smell of charcoal and citronella candles still carried the weight of old summer nights. My heart was pounding so hard I had to count my steps just to keep from throwing up. "Hey, look who it is." That was Ben, My older brother, the golden child, the one who got Dad's jawline and his approval. He didn't hug me. He didn't scowl either. Just blinked. Like he wasn't sure if I was real or just a memory in khakis. Lucy offered me a tight-lipped smile. She was holding her toddler and a glass of wine like twin shields. I reached for a plate of macaroni salad, and she shifted to block me like I was contagious. No one asked me what I'd been doing. No one asked where I'd been. It was like I'd shown up at the wrong house, speaking the wrong language. And then came Dad. It's funny. In my line of work, I've had hardened killers scream in my face. I've stared down warlords, con men, political monsters. But nothing, and I mean nothing, compares to the feeling of your own father looking at you like you're a disgrace. He pulled me aside, near the grill. The spatula still dangled from his hand like a weapon. You think showing up now fixes anything? No, I whispered. I just wanted to see everyone. He shook his head, like I'd confirmed the worst. You betrayed your family, he said. Went off to be a ghost. Skipped your grandfather's funeral. Skipped birthdays. What are you now? Some desk jockey for the feds? Too good for us? I wish I could say I defended myself, but I didn't. Because the truth I carried would sound like lies to people who never lived in the gray. I couldn't say, I was in a safe house trying to break a code that would stop a bombing. I couldn't say, I have more scars than I can count, all earned for people who will never know my name. So I said nothing, and in that silence, he said it. You're no daughter of mine. That sentence echoes louder than explosions. Even now, days later, I replay it in my head like a looping audio file. It doesn't dull. After the party, I checked into a cheap motel on the edge of town. The kind where the vending machine hums louder than the television, and the wallpaper peels like old secrets. I sat on the bed for hours, staring at my hands. I thought of everything I had lost. Time, family, self. All for a country that couldn't even acknowledge me. Was it worth it? I didn't know anymore. But somewhere around 3 a.m., I remembered a boy I pulled out of a burning van outside Kandahar. He couldn't have been more than 7. He had blood in his teeth, a broken arm, and he clung to my neck like I was a miracle. He's alive because I was there. That's the thing about being invisible. You don't get parades, but you do leave echoes. And sometimes, that has to be enough. Still, I had no idea what was coming, or who would show up at my motel door 2 days later. 2 days later, there was a knock on my motel door. 3 short raps. Crisp. Measured. The kind of knock that isn't casual. It's official. My instincts kick in before I even rise from the edge of the bed. My mind runs through a mental checklist: escape route, angle of surveillance, proximity to my go bag. Old habits? I've lived too long in places where a knock like that meant blood. I look through the peephole, and I freeze. It's Clara, senior liaison, agency lifer, face like steel, hair always too neat for real sleep. The last time I saw her was 6 months ago in a war zone where we buried a body under fake names. She doesn't show up unless it's critical. I open the door. Clara, you've been out of communication for 3 days, she says flatly, stepping in without waiting for permission. She eyes the peeling wallpaper, the barely made bed. Classy. Yeah, well, I wasn't planning a staycation. I shut the door behind her. What's going on? She hands me a sealed envelope. Government grade, heavy, embossed with the insignia I know too well. Your service is being declassified, she says, her tone almost gentle. The department wants to honor you. I blink. Excuse me? They're lifting the gag order, the mission in Tirana, Operation Lantern. My mouth goes dry. Lantern was hell, a high-level bioagents interception op, months undercover. Sleepless nights decoding shipments, trailing proxies, decoding whispers in 5 languages. One mistake, and half a city would have collapsed under black smoke. I lost 2 teammates on that mission. One of them was my partner, David. He took a bullet meant for me and bled out in a concrete stairwell while I held his hand and kept breathing like it mattered. I never got to say his name again. Until now. They're citing it as one of the most successful classified interventions in the past decade, Clara says, her voice dropping. They want to pin a medal on your chest. Real ceremony. Media blackout on specifics. But you'll be publicly acknowledged for distinguished covert service. I just stare at her. The silence rings. You're being invited to Washington, she finishes. The Pentagon wants you there in 2 weeks. It's not joy I feel. It's something heavier, older, like recognition from a ghost I thought had long forgotten my name. Why now? I ask. Why me? Because you did something no one else could, and it's time someone told the truth. Clara steps closer. We don't get many chances to be seen. Don't waste this one. Then she turns to leave, pausing at the door. Oh, and one more thing. Your father opened the invitation letter. It was mistakenly routed to your registered home address in Virginia. I go cold. He read it? Clara nods, something unreadable in her eyes. Guess the cat's out of the bag. And just like that, she's gone. I sit back on the motel bed, the envelope still burning in my hand. My father knows. He knows. What does that change? I spend the next 2 weeks in a daze, flying back to D.C. I catch myself rehearsing things I might say to him. Angry things, sad things, begging for understanding things. But every sentence dies in my throat, because after all these years I've forgotten how to speak to him without armor. The morning of the ceremony, I stand in front of the Pentagon's grand stone arch. My dress uniform fits differently now. Heavier somehow. The metals feel sharp against my chest. There are more cameras than I expected. Not the press. These ceremonies aren't for headlines, but internal dignitaries, high-ranking officials, some families of fallen agents. It's intimate and solemn. When my name is called, not my cover name, not a code name, my name, a chill runs through me. I step forward, and then I see him. My father. Front row. Wearing his old service pin and a tie I gave him when I was 16. His hands clasped in front of him, his face unreadable. But his eyes aren't angry, they're searching. A general begins reading the citation. Operation Lantern. Agents field intelligence directly responsible for the prevention of a biological catastrophe. Leadership under extreme duress. Loss of comrades. Unshakable composure. Highest honors. I hear none of it. I hear the 9-year-old version of me burying a compass. I hear my grandfather's war stories in the garage. I hear my father's voice saying, "You're no daughter of mine." And then I hear something else. Applause. For me? I accept the medal, still stunned. Salute. Return to my seat. And then, he stands. My father. Walks toward me through the line of dignitaries. He doesn't say a word. He stops in front of me. And with every eye in the room watching, he lifts his hand to his forehead. And salutes. No sarcasm, no performance, no anger. Just a father, seeing his daughter, really seeing her, for the first time. The moment breaks something open in me. He lowers his hand. We lock eyes. He doesn't apologize. He doesn't have to. He says quietly, "I didn't know." And I whisper, "You weren't supposed to." He nods. And for the first time in a decade, we stand together. Not as enemies, not as strangers, but as soldiers. The next morning, I wake up in a room the agency reserved for me. just a few blocks from the Pentagon, with thick blackout curtains and linens too crisp to feel like home. The metal rests on the dresser, still in its velvet box, like a secret I'm not sure I've earned. I roll onto my back and stare at the ceiling. My mind isn't quiet. It's never quiet. But this morning, it feels stiller. Then I hear a knock on the door. This time, it's not crisp. It's uncertain. Hesitant. I open it slowly, and there he is. My father. In the same windbreaker he's worn since I was a kid, a coffee in one hand and a wrinkled bag from a nearby bakery in the other. "Didn't know what you liked," he mutters, holding out the bag. "So I just got everything." I blink. "You came alone?" He nods, looking down. "The others, well, one step at a time, I guess." I let him in. He sits stiffly on the edge of the armchair by the window while I pour us coffee. For a while, we just sip in silence, two people orbiting the same unspoken things. Finally, he clears his throat. "You know, when they read that citation yesterday, when they said what you did, I just..." He stops. His fingers tighten around the cup. "I thought I knew what service looked like. I thought it wore a uniform, saluted the flag, came home for Christmas." He looks at me, his face worn, softer somehow. "I didn't know it looked like my daughter, disappearing so others could live." His words hit like a quiet explosion. "I missed birthdays," I whisper. "Weddings, deaths. I missed you, but I never stopped looking back. I just couldn't afford to turn around." He sets his coffee down and leans forward, elbows on knees. "I used to think silence meant shame," he says. "Like if you couldn't speak about something, it was because it was wrong. But now I see, sometimes silence means sacrifice, and I made the mistake of shaming you for it." I can feel my throat tighten, but I don't speak. "I thought I raised you to serve with honor," he continues. "Turns out, you taught me what honor really looks like." I reach into the small envelope on the table, the one they handed me after the ceremony. It's just a photo. Me and David, taken on our first joint mission. We're half in shadow, laughing over noodles in some hole-in-the-wall alley overseas. He's got his cap on backward. I've got ink smudges on my hands from decoding files all night. It's a photo I was never allowed to display. Until now. I slide it across to my dad. "He died saving me," I whisper. "I carry that with me every day. I just didn't have room to carry your judgment too." He stares at the photo for a long time. Then, carefully, he folds it in half and places it in his wallet, right where I used to keep my fourth-grade class picture. "You ever think about leaving it behind?" he asks. "Every day," I say. He nods, like he understands that now. Like the weight of what I carried has finally reached his shoulders, not to bear, but to witness. "I don't know how to make this right," he says. "You just did," I whisper. We sit like that for a while, two soldiers from different wars, letting the morning light wrap around us like a flag we both forgot how to salute. That evening, I drive back to Virginia. Not because I'm ready, because I need to see what forgiveness looks like in my mother's eyes. Because I want to hear Lucy's laugh again, even if it's cautious. Because I want to look at Ben and say, "I never left. I was just hiding in the open. The house hasn't changed. The mailbox still leans left. The flag still flutters on the porch. But something inside is different." When I walk through the door, my mother's hands fly to her mouth. She whispers, "You came back." I hug her, and in her arms I feel a decade of ache unclench. Ben is more awkward. He doesn't speak much, but he squeezes my shoulder on his way to the kitchen. Lucy stares at me for a long time before she says, "You could have told me." "I couldn't," I say, "but I wanted to. Every day." She nods. "I figured. I just didn't want to admit it." Dinner is slow, conversation tentative, like a waltz with ghosts. But halfway through dessert, Lucy says, So, you were like, what? 007 with a ponytail? And for the first time in years, I laugh. A real laugh. From somewhere deep and unburied. And the whole table joins me. The wound hasn't disappeared. But for the first time, it's healing. I don't go back to the agency. Not because they don't ask. Clara calls me twice in the following month, dangling half-promises of consultancy roles, secure intel analysis positions, stateside contracts that don't require disguises or dead drops. But I say no. Because I need to learn how to exist without disappearing. Because I need to learn how to be seen, not as a shadow, but as someone who lived through the shadows and came out with a pulse. So I stay. At first, I rent a small place just on the edge of town. Nothing fancy. 2 rooms, uneven floorboards, and a cat that shows up every morning demanding food, like we've always been roommates. I spend a week cleaning out old trunks, the ones I stored in safe houses and storage units under fake names. I open files and photos and medals that never saw the light of day. I keep some, burn others. There's something sacred about fire. It doesn't just destroy, it clarifies. And slowly, I let the world know I'm here again. It's awkward. Lucy texts me photos of her daughter's ballet recital, followed by, "No pressure, just wanted you to see." Ben invites me to his barbecue. He makes ribs now, just like Dad but with a secret bourbon glaze. He says the recipe's classified. I don't push. Mom is the warmest of them all. She knits me a scarf the same color as my childhood bedroom walls, says it'll keep me grounded. But Dad doesn't say much. He calls me once, at 6 a.m. sharp. Just says, "Morning," and then lets the silence stretch. I know what he's doing. He's trying to learn how to be a father to a woman he never understood. Trying to walk beside the version of me that survived the years he shunned. So I give him space. And every time I visit, he pours me coffee before I can ask. Then one day it happens. I come home to find a letter wedged into my mailbox. No return address. But I know that envelope. Same seal. Same weight. Pentagon issued. My breath catches. Inside, there's a single sheet. You are hereby requested to attend a National Service Recognition Ceremony for Operation Lantern to be held at the Capitol Rotunda. Families of agents may be present. Public recognition authorized under Title 18 clearance. Award: Presidential Medal of Freedom in Service. I sit down right there on the porch steps. Not because of the medal, not even because it's public, but because, for the first time, someone's saying the quiet part out loud. What we did mattered. I call my dad. I got another letter, I say. He pauses. Another one? Yeah, this time it's not just for me. He doesn't ask questions, doesn't joke. He just says, "Tell me where to be." We attend the ceremony together. Me, my mother, Lucy, Ben, even Michael flies in from out west. We're all seated in the back of the great marble hall, our faces lit by chandeliers and history. They read out names. Most I know, some I don't. One is David's. I close my eyes when they say it. Then they call mine. I walk forward. Cameras flash. Applause swells. But my eyes aren't on the crowd. They're on my family. Ben's eyes are wet. Lucy's clapping so hard it looks painful. And my father. He's standing. Not stiff. Not out of duty. He's standing for me. For the daughter who disappeared but didn't vanish. For the woman who bled in silence but never broke. For the soldier in shadows who found her way home. Afterward, we gather outside. The wind is soft, and the Capitol dome glows behind us like a story someone finally dared to write down. My father pulls me aside. He doesn't speak right away. Just looks at me for a long time. Then he reaches into his jacket pocket and pulls something out. It's small, old, rusted, a compass. The same one he made me bury when I was 9. I dug it up. he says. Kept it all these years. You were right. It wasn't broken. I just didn't like the direction it pointed. He presses it into my hand. But you followed it anyway. I look down at the compass. The needle trembles for a second, then settles. North. I close my fingers around it. Thanks, Dad. He nods, then, awkwardly, leans in and hugs me. Real. Firm. Lasting. I may not have raised a daughter I understood, he murmurs, but I sure as hell raised one I respect. For the first time, I believe it. I keep the compass on my windowsill now. It's old and a little corroded, but the needle still moves, still finds true north. On mornings when the world feels heavy, I run my fingers over the cracked brass edges, remembering the dirt on my 9-year-old hands, the sting of my father's disappointment, and the long road between then and now. Life didn't go back to normal, because there's no normal after a decade of shadows. But something softer grew in the places I thought were permanently scorched. Lucy invites me to dinner every other Thursday. Her daughter calls me Agent Auntie, even though I keep insisting I was just a really boring data person. She doesn't buy it. Ben and I started going on early morning runs together. He pushes the pace. I pretend not to be out of breath. We don't talk much during them, but every once in a while, he'll slap my shoulder and say, "You've still got it," like I ever had it to begin with. Mom sends me news clippings now. Thought this might interest you. She scribbles in the margins. She's slowly rebuilding the bridge with the version of me she didn't get to mother. Sometimes she cries when she hugs me. Sometimes I let her. As for Dad, he's different now. Still stoic, still sharp, but there's a softness at the edges. He started showing up at veterans events again. Always brings my photo, tucked in beside his. Not in uniform. Just me, laughing, hair in a mess, with the scar on my chin I stopped covering years ago. Last month he invited me to speak at the VFW. I almost choked on my coffee. You sure about that? I asked. He gave me that familiar glare. I didn't say lecture, just talk. So I talked. I told the room of old soldiers and young recruits about what it means to serve in silence, about carrying a weight no one can see and bleeding for a country that may never know your name. I told them about David, about Tirana, about the darkness and the compass and the guilt that clings like second skin. I didn't cry, but my voice cracked once. Dad was in the front row, arms folded, jaw clenched. Afterward, he stood and said, "That was my daughter. Just that. Nothing else." And it was enough. Sometimes people ask if I regret it. The years I lost. The birthdays missed. The funerals I never stood beside. The parts of myself I buried to keep others breathing. And I won't lie. Some nights, when the wind howls just right and the silence inside my apartment stretches too long, I wonder. I wonder who I might have been if I'd chosen differently, if I'd stayed. But then I remember that little boy in the van, the mother who clutched my hand in a refugee corridor and said, "You're the angel they sent." The coded call from Clara the night we stopped a shipment that could have turned New York to dust. I remember that sometimes disappearing is the highest form of love. Not everyone will understand. Not everyone needs to. Because now, the people who matter do. At Thanksgiving, Dad carves the turkey with his military precision. Lucy lights the candles. Ben grumbles about the mashed potatoes. It's noisy, imperfect, real. And in the middle of it all, my father turns to me and says, not loudly, but clearly, "We're proud of you." I don't flinch anymore when I hear it. I believe it. The girl who once buried a compass in the backyard now wears it on her wrist, engraved with a single word, honor. Not the kind that needs medals, but the kind that lets you sleep at night. Thank you for listening to my story. If you've ever been called a traitor for following your own truth, If you've ever disappeared to protect something no one else could see, just know, even shadows have names. And one day, they're called into the light. We find our way back. One step, one scar, one compass turn at a time.